business athletes, welcome back for yet another action-packed episode all around how I use habit stacking to optimize my day. Basically, guys, this is the high performance day blueprint. What I do on a day-to-day basis, systems, processes, tools, tactics, like real world stuff that you will be able to take from this conversation and test and apply to your own life and see if it yields the results that you're looking for. I will tell you that my life has changed so much over the years. It's really interesting because I think back to when I was a teenager. I'm 42 at the time of this recording. And I think back to when I was a teenager in my early 20s. And I was very, very different to what I'm like now. So I was very disheveled. I was very disordered, sloppy. In general, if I had to paint a picture and kind of walk you through what my daily routine looked like back then, and I'll be honest, I'm not going to catastrophize it and make it sound worse than it was, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. And so I remember I was working in a butchery. And I hated that job. I hated that environment. It was a very toxic space to be in. A lot of the people that were in that environment had addictions and domestic violence challenges with their spouse. They were just angry people in general. And I think to myself, it's kind of part and parcel of being in a butchery. It really just does attract people who are already kind of unstable because it's like the only people that can tolerate being in an environment like that. And I remember when my alarm would go off in the morning, because I would get up at about 4 a.m. because I would start work at 6. And I remember my alarm going off, and many mornings I remember I would just cry. Now, this wasn't all the time, but there'd be times where I was having conflicts or I was feeling pressure or challenged by the management or some of the older butchers. It was like a wolf pack, basically. And in many ways, I was at the bottom of the pack. And so you get the brunt of people's frustration. And there were times where, I'd wake up and I would be okay, but there were times where I'd wake up and I would just cry and I just feel like, man, is this my life? And back then I smoked. So I would literally, and sounds embarrassing to even say this now, but I would roll up a cigarette and I would lay in bed, I'd sit up in bed and I would smoke a cigarette in bed. Before my day began, before the feet even touched the floor. I didn't even hydrate with water or anything like that. So when I tell you that, like I was at the other end of the spectrum, I genuinely mean that. It wasn't just like a little bit bad, it was a lot bad. And I remember at times having so little money. I was so broke. And the reason why I was broke more so was because I didn't budget my money well. Obviously when you're working a blue-collar job like that, you do have to be smarter with how you spend your money. And I spent a lot of my money on alcohol, a lot of it on cigarettes, and a lot of it on fast food. And so by spending it all on that, I would often run out of money before my next payday, or I would have very little. And I remember sometimes not even having enough money for breakfast. And I would get to work, I would get to the supermarket, and there's a powdered drink mix called Milo. It's kind of like a Nestle chocolate powdered drinking mix. And it's more popularized in New Zealand and Australia, where I'm from originally. And I would literally put 6 or 7 heaped tablespoons of Milo in a cup and mix a little bit of milk with it to make it a sludge. And that's what I would eat for breakfast. So it's basically just sugar. So that was my morning fuel. And obviously when I had money, I would eat other stuff. But I never remember having any structure with my diet. That's the thing. I don't remember consciously saying, okay, what's my breakfast meal? It was random. It was haphazard. And then we would work through the morning, and I would go off for my lunch break, and I would just usually get goods from the bakery section. Like these baked pastries with ground meat in them and cheese. Or these little Hot Pocket type lasagna things. So it was just straight processed junk. And then I would often get some donuts or something like that as well. So I'd be eating donuts and Hot Pockets basically. And I would get through to the day through about 3 p.m. And at that point, we would typically start to finish up work. And I would head back home. And there was a period of my life where I didn't even have like stable places I was living. I was kind of drifting. You know, I was staying at different people's houses because I got kicked out of home, and I didn't really have like a solid base. And I remember getting home from work, and I would be so tired that I would I'd take a nap. I'd sleep from about 4 p.m. through to 6 p.m. And then I would wake up, I would have dinner, and usually my dinner was like a frozen pizza or something. And if it was a weekday, I would just be on my phone, texting people, that type of thing. And then I would just go to bed and do it again the next day. Very, very simplistic day, but not in a good way. And then the next step in my evolution was when I did move back home and I started to clean up my life, and I went into what I call monk mode, where I really cut ties with a lot of the old people in my life that were drinking a ton, partying a ton. Some of them were robbing houses. It was a bad environment to be in. And so I remember moving back home, and even then, my habits weren't great. They were better than what it was when I was just left to my own devices. And so I went back to study law and psychology at the University of Auckland. And again, it's one of those things where I started my transformation, and I think it's important that I share this with you, wasn't some overnight success type thing. It wasn't like I hit rock bottom and then I turned my life around and that was the end of it. It was this gradual grind out of the hole. It was actually quite a drawn out, gradual grinding process. And so I remind people of that when you are in your transformation, and maybe if you feel like you're in a hole, it's great if you can have that epiphany where you just like have that aha moment and you change everything. Great, awesome. But if you're anything like me, it was like a long, drawn-out grind where there was ebbs and flows, and you'd make 3 steps forward and one or 2 steps back. And there were times where you'd kind of relapse and struggle, and slowly you get yourself out of the hole, rather than this beautiful sort of fairy tale story. That's sexier. That sells more than just like a slow grind, doesn't it? But I wanted to share that with you because I understand if you're in that place. Believe me, I get it. And I remember when I started working out at the gym, that was really what changed a lot for me. So I started to value my relationships at the gym with guys that were 10, 20 years older than me, that were parents, husbands, fathers. They were business owners. So they were more evolved, and for whatever reason, they took me under their wing. You know, they just maybe saw something in me, and I started to associate with and connect with those types of people more, many sort of father figure type people. And what I found was that I really began to value those relationships more, and I stopped going out at nighttime. I went into, like I said, what I call monk mode. And it just lost its appeal to go out at night and drink and party and club. That it just completely lost its appeal, because what I would find is that when I would go out and do all those things, I'd be so fried in the morning to get up. I wouldn't be able to get to the gym, and when I did, I had no energy. I felt like garbage, and I really started to notice how these two worlds were conflicting. So that my old life and my old world was like acting like a lead balloon, pulling me down away from the beautiful life that I wanted to create. And it took a bit of a grind to go through enough of that suffering to really understand that, man, I've got to sever some ties. So sometimes you have to make hard decisions where you have to cut ties with certain people. You have to change your environment. Maybe you have to really be strict with like the types of foods that you bring into your house. You know, if you're bringing in a bunch of junk meat, you have to get to a point where you just really find ways to overhaul everything. You've got to drop the hammer on yourself at times. And I remember starting to work out more. And I started to get more into like a bodybuilding style diet. So I ate lots of canned tuna. I even ate lots of canned chicken. Canned tuna and canned chicken, it was your typical bodybuilding diet. I drank big smoothie, thick shakes with raw eggs, tons of milk, raw eggs, typical bodybuilding, like 90s style stuff. And what I found was that I got stronger. I built a bunch of muscle, but my skin was pretty bad. I got a lot of acne. I had a lot of ADHD and brain fog. I didn't feel very good, even though I was a stark contrast better than what I used to be. And I was still dealing with a lot of anxiety. So I was medicated for anxiety. I was medicated for ADHD. I was medicated for bipolar depression. So I was trying to navigate all of these things. And what I found was that I was constantly pulled between two worlds of drinking Smirnoff Black and wanting to go out and party and wanting to be better at the health and fitness and the good stuff. And almost as a natural evolution of myself, the more that I just became aware of that dichotomy, the more I started to really anchor towards the new life more and more and more. And so I got this little dog called Allie, a little fox terrier, and I just went into monk mode. And I'd stay home, I'd watch National Geographic and Discovery Channel, I'd go to the gym, I would study. And even during this period of time, I still struggled at times. So long story short here, I was dealing with a lot of when I stopped drinking, like when I severed that part of my life, I'd spent so much of my life dealing with suppressing emotions by drinking, by using cannabis, by using substances, that now all of a sudden I was feeling everything. And the anxiety went through the roof because I did it unprepared. I didn't recognize and realize the crutches I was using. And now I know better. And so I would share with you there are better strategies to taper off things than to just try cold turkey stuff. And I remember getting such bad anxiety one time on the campus bus to go in for my double degree that I quit. I was about to throw up on the bus. I was sweating profusely. There was like so much anxiety. It was terrible. And I remember getting off the bus and I thought to myself, oh, you're sick. You know, you're sweating. You feel like you've got a fever. You're about to throw up. Go home and just rest. Go home and rest. And it's almost like I gave myself permission. But you know the funny thing? Well, not even the funny thing, but the interesting thing was that I knew deep down that I was going to quit. I knew somewhere inside me that me pulling that trigger and making that decision, I was going to quit. And I quit, and I had a bunch of student debt, and I had nothing to show for it. And not only had I quit my butchery apprenticeship about 6 months before finishing like a 4-year apprenticeship, so I didn't even have that. I'd left and failed high school early. I'd gone back to study at university to get this special degree to enable me to then study law and psychology, and I quit that 2 years in. So I had a string of failures in my life, a string of failures. And so to get to the point where I'm at now has been a real journey. So I share this with you to kind of frame up where I used to be. And even when I was making these transitions, I would still eat your typical bodybuilding diet. I was probably where a lot of people would be now. So I was consuming sort of a typical fitness diet. I was working out, but I wasn't really like walking or active. I would still stay up late and watch nonsense on TV. I didn't really have clarity around my goals or what I was working towards. I wasn't a husband. I wasn't a father. I wasn't mentally prepared for any of that stuff. I was kind of just in survival mode, to be honest, just trying to get through each day and keep my head on straight. So I say all this now, having gone back and studied nutrition and human structure and function and actually passed eventually, which was a big accomplishment after all those failures. And what I found is that there's been a few massive changes in my life that I wanted to share with you that I know will be useful for you. And some things you won't necessarily be able to apply, but some things you will. So one of the big catalysts that really helped me initiate more change was me choosing to leave New Zealand. You know, I met Lauren in a Facebook group, in a business group. my wife, and we were friends and connecting for about a year. And it was one of those situations where I just knew if I don't come over to America and to meet her, I will always wonder what if. It will be that thing that haunts me for the rest of my life. You will have situations in your life like that where you just know you have to try. Like you know you have to leap and try that business idea. You know you have to leap and move to that place. You know you have to leap and try that relationship, because if you don't, you'll always wonder what if it actually worked? What would it have looked like? And I'm a living example of that. 13 years in, married, 2 children, and a completely different life because of that one decision. One decision, one fork in the road changed everything. And so what I found was that when I left New Zealand, it was like an amazing opportunity to reinvent myself. It was a real identity reinvention, because now all of a sudden I was going to a different country where no one knew me, no one knew my background, no one knew my history, and I was able to genuinely recreate. Now, I'm not telling you you have to move countries to do that, but I do think there is power in this idea of recreation, around looking at the identity and the character of the person you want to create, and then looking at the types of habits and routines and rituals that person has, and every day, as much as you can, asking yourself that question and living into that. So that's the first thing. Is like environment and location for me was a big part of like that initial catalyst of change. And beyond that, what I found was that when I started to recognize that my ADHD was actually a weapon and a tool rather than this curse, rather than this handicap, like many people think, I started to try to think of ways to leverage it. And a lot of my processes that I use today tie into this. So if you've struggled with ADHD or concentration and focus, a lot of what I'm going to share in my current routine ties into this. So now where I'm at, 2026, husband, father, successful consultant and business operator. We have properties, a couple of properties around the US, back in New Zealand. We'll travel in our RV at times. Our RV is in storage right now. We work remotely. We just got some land that we're about to build on. We live in the beautiful Great Smoky Mountains. I work from home. Lauren doesn't even work. She's just full-time motherhood, homeschooling, which is such a blessing. Like, I'm so thankful for that. And I don't share any of that to brag, because there's many people out there that are doing they're far eclipsing what I'm doing right now in their business and in their finances. But I'm also saying, based on where I've come from, I could have never envisioned this life so far. The amount of progress I've been able to generate through the principles and the processes and the routines that I want to talk to you about, that I do on a daily basis now, that really do pay off. And so it gives you freedom. It gives you options. And so I say all this because many of you will know who I am. Many of you will listen to many of these podcast episodes, so you know a lot about what I do, but more so the type of person you want to create and the type of life that you want to create. And you've got to remind yourself and realize that if you have this dream for what your life can be and the type of results you want in your life, you've got to start asking better questions and start saying to yourself, what does my daily routine, habits, and rituals need to look like to make that dream happen? And so let me dive into this. So one of my big motivating factors for operating the way that I do, and it ties back to this quote that I saw recently. And it says, discipline looks like punishment when the mission is not clear. Discipline looks like punishment when the mission is not clear. And what that means to me is that when you are not clear and have clarity around the dream you're trying to create and the path that you need to walk on, you're going to see all these habits and these rituals and these routines as deprivation, as punishment. You'll see the early wake-up time as something that's terrible. painful. You'll see the workouts as something that sucks. You'll see the diet as something that is depriving. If you don't have clarity around your mission. If you have clarity around your mission, you will see it as a compass. You'll see it as rite of passage. That, hey, this is the ticket of administration to get into this show. And I found that just that perception alone has helped me a ton make sense of what I'm doing. So I think to myself, if I want to create maximum financial freedom for my family and build this beautiful homestead on our land and have a barndominium that's got this like an amazing home gym where I can shoot YouTube videos and have workshops where you can come out and do these live training sessions with me, and I can work remotely and we can travel between here and New Zealand whenever we want, and I just have the ability to create a level of financial freedom for myself that gives me options and allows me to help more people. That's very motivating to me. And I would tell you that you want to have ambitions like that for yourself. What it means is that you need to operate like a different person. If you keep doing your current things, if you keep doing your current results, you'll keep generating the current outcome. And so if you want more out of your life, you have to literally change your day-to-day actions and habits. It's that simple. So what does it look like? What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through a typical day for me, and then I'm going to give you some like key things and tactics and tools that I implement often that have really helped me. So this is where you actually get some tools to go away and test. So I get up at about 2 to 2:30 in the morning. Now the reason why I get up so early, I've been that way for a long time. I would say part of it is like a genetic thing. Part of it is because I used to get up so early when I was a butcher. So I've spent years waking up early. Do I think you need to do what I do? No, I don't. I don't think you need to get up at 2 in the morning. Do I think it's useful to get up at, say, 4 or 5? Yeah, I do think, in general, if you're a busy person and you're a spouse and a parent or a grandparent, it's nice to have time in the morning for yourself. That white space where you can sharpen your axe, you can put your oxygen mask on first, you can get your head in the game before the world starts demanding things from you. The reason why I encourage people to do that in the morning rather than at nighttime is because nighttime is when all the vices come out. You're mentally fatigued, the mental fuel tank's empty, and that's when you'll cave. That's when you'll eat piles of garbage and do all the stupid things that people do to hold themselves back because your mental willpower is completely tanked from getting through your day. So what I do is I take that time window that I'd normally have at nighttime when the willpower is garbage, and I position it in the morning instead. And what I find is that time and time again, you will have more mental stamina in the morning early than you will at nighttime. So you're not fighting yourself as much. You'd be amazed at how much results you can generate just by removing a couple of bad habits at nighttime. See, people often think, I talk about focusing on addition, right? And I do think focusing on addition and adding good things in is massive. It's such an important part of the process, and I'm going to talk about that. But I also recognize that at a certain point, if you're adding a lot of good stuff in, but you're drinking a ton and you're smoking a ton of cannabis and then you're eating a pile of shit, you're just not going to be able to biohack your way out of that. It's going to get you. Your weight will go up. Your blood work will get worse. You'll feel like garbage. And there's no peptides and supplements and biohacks you can do to mitigate some of those things. So at a certain point, you really have to like bite down and go, you know what? I've got to change these things. And so for me, getting up earlier, going to bed earlier was massive. So I go to bed at about 7:30 or 8 p.m. The whole family is in bed by 8 p.m. latest. And that's just part of our routine. I'm going to talk about morning routines and evening routines in more detail. So I'm going to give you some like tangibles here. But the first thing I wanted to frame was that wake time and why it's so important. So I would tell you, and so I've had some people say, oh, you know, I'm struggling with my sleep. I'll wake up at 4 p.m. and I can't go back to sleep again. And I'm like, and just get up. Start positioning your sleep-wake cycle so you get up at 4 a.m. and you go, instead of going to bed at 10:30, go to bed at 9 o'clock. Stop trying to think that you need to sleep into like 6 a.m. and trying to like problem solve something that isn't actually a problem. That's the thing. Most people are trying to problem solve things that aren't actually problems, and they create complexity for themselves. If you're waking up at 4, get up at 4. Get used to getting up earlier and get used to going to bed earlier. Make that the habit. You have a choice. You don't have to do any of this, but you're going to keep getting the same result. And so you've got to ask yourself, is that what you want, or do you want different? So I get up early. Now, the first thing that I do when I wake up is, and I'll often share this in my Instagram and Facebook stories, is I'll do what I call some Mike Tyson push-ups. Everyone now calls them superhuman push-ups because part of my brand used to be superhuman and business athlete. So people call them superhuman push-ups, but Mike Tyson kind of popularized them. So if you go to YouTube and search Mike Tyson push-ups, you'll see what they look like. And the reason why I do a bunch of these, I do 100 of these in the morning. And the reason why I do 100 of these in the morning is because what I found is that by starting my day doing something a little bit challenging that I normally wouldn't want to do, it really does kind of set the standard. It seems to set that mental tone of I just operate as a more disciplined person, and that's the first point of evidence every single day. You need to create evidence that you are the person that you say you are. And if you can create that little bit of evidence right out of the gate, that is a massive mental win. And it sort of sets the energetic tone for your morning. So I do it for one part for that, but the other part is like a real physiological thing where when you wake up in the morning, if you just sit there like a sloth, you're going to feel super tired. When you move your body, like when you exert yourself even a little bit and you move your body, you will notice that it actually wakes you up. It wakes up your nervous system. It wakes up your mind. And you don't need as much caffeine to get you going. So I'll even tell people, if the superhuman push-ups are too challenging for you, just do some squat swings. So squat swings are basically where you squat down, and then you swing your arms up above your head and down, up above your head and down as you're squatting up and down. Bodyweight squats with arm swings. And I say this because what I find is that when I do these, it really does wake my mind up. So rather than me feeling really groggy and feeling like I need an extra hit of caffeine to just function, I notice that my mind gets clearer and more awake by doing that one thing. And that really has been a massive theme in my life of recognizing that movement is a way to prime your system to generate more energy. Most people look for a substance. They look for caffeine, Adderall, Ritalin. They look for a stimulant. When in actuality, you're much better off just moving your body. And I'm going to talk about that through the day because you'll notice that there's a lot of my processes are anchored around movement and in different modalities. So once I do my Superman push-ups, I will drink a bunch of water. Now, my water has a little concoction in it. So it's got some Spring Dragon longevity tea. It's got some essential amino acids. It's got some trace minerals. It's got a little bit of inositol. So I kind of make this concoction the night before, and it's ready to go. So in the morning, it's like hydration, water, amino acids, minerals, Spring Dragon longevity tea mixed together down the hatch. It's probably about anywhere between 16 and 20 ounces of spring water. So you want to get that in your system because that kind of helps like start flushing your system, and you'll notice that it helps with stimulating your digestion. So you get that in your system. You've been dehydrated through the night. You start to flush your digestion. That's going to get you going. Because you do want, as TMI as this might be, you want that healthy bowel movement in the morning to kind of get your day going. Because nothing is worse than if you're super constipated and you're pooping like once every 2 days. That's not good. You'll feel terrible. Like you'll feel so bloated and distended. You want to have those regular bowel movements, and especially the water and the movement. Even rebounding. So some people, instead of doing the squat swings, they'll do like 3 minutes of rebounding on a little rebounding trampoline, and they'll drink a bunch of water, and that really helps with digestion. Coffee and caffeine can help as well, but don't just hinge your whole process around a bunch of caffeine and coffee. Have that as part of your routine. Then what I do is I will have my coffee. So I have my coffee with my monk fruit sweetener in it, And sometimes I'll even add a little bit of like a mushroom adaptogen, like a mud water or a rise in there. So I'm doing like a half and half blend. And quite honestly, sometimes I'll just have a protein bar. Like my little luxurious part of my day is sitting on the couch with a blanket on me, sipping my coffee, eating a protein bar that I love the taste of, watching some YouTube. Now, people might go, oh, well, protein bars are junk food. That's not optimal. Shouldn't you be fasting? And what I've realized is, look, man, at the end of the day, if I'm doing so many other things well, and I find that that little part of my process is something that I can look forward to, so I can actually sustain this process long term, the ROI of that is massive. So yeah, sure, someone could say, well, the protein bars process, you shouldn't break your fast with that. And I just think to myself, you know what? I've spent so many years fasting and eating whole foods and doing all the tactics. If that gives me that little sense of like joy in the morning and enjoyment, so be it. You don't have to do that, but that's what I do. So I'll rotate through different types of protein bars depending on what I feel like. So I'll sit there, I'll nibble on that, I'll drink my coffee, and I'll usually just watch some YouTube content that's like white space content. So it might be something on gardening or homesteading or house design or like a house tour or an interview around personal development or a combination of all those things. And that's really my time where I learn and I kind of get my head in a better mental place. And it usually will be where I start to conjure up my morning mindset messages. So at some point in the morning, I will do my morning mindset messages for my students. And a lot of what I talk about comes from the material and the content that I consume in the morning as I'm kind of educating myself and waking my mind up. Now, I am conscious about not going in and just consuming a bunch of negative stuff. You've got to really protect your space in the morning. Like if you jump on YouTube or if you go on social media and you're just consuming a bunch of fear-mongering propaganda and stressful news updates, it's going to set a tone for your day and energy that's not good. And you've got to ask yourself, like, is that going to help you create the life that you want? Because if it doesn't, you've got to protect your space. So I turn off all my push notifications to my phone. I don't get any text message notifications, no phone call notifications. I don't get any notifications from social media, any notifications from any of my audio messaging apps that I have with my students. Zero. And then I'll go in intentionally once my mind is in a better place, and then I will check the apps. Then I will check the email. Then I will check my messages and that type of thing. So there's a lot of intentionality around this. And I do it once I'm in a good space. Otherwise, if you're just waking up and you're just randomly checking stuff, emails and messages and social media reactively, you're going to fill your mind with everyone else's reactive, hot mess, stressful focus points. And that's going to become your baseline. And then you wonder why you're anxious and depressed and feel nihilistic about the world because you're consuming tons of negative garbage. So be very, very mindful about your digital diet. Curate your social media news feed. Protect your space. Turn your push notifications off. Go in there with intention and add positive messaging to your social media every day. Now, once I've got this morning part of my process done, I'll come out to my superhuman gym and I'll start walking on my walking pad at about 4:30 a.m. Now, I would tell people, if you don't have as much time for white space in the morning like I do, you want to really walk at some point within the first 30 minutes of waking. I would tell you that that's going to give you the best energetic result. It's going to give you the best sort of vibe. Now, I start walking at 4:30, and you'd be amazed at how much just walking changes your state. I've heard this so many times from people too, where they say, you know what, I was feeling tired, I was feeling stressed out, I was feeling kind of low, and I started walking, and I noticed that it really does start to improve my mood and change the way that I feel. That's why I do this. It's exactly why I do it. So I would tell you that if you don't have a walking pad in your house, you are absolutely doing yourself a disservice. Yeah, it's great to get outside and walk the dog and walk out in the environment. Great. But if you don't have the outdoor walks and the ability to walk inside, massive disservice to yourself. right there, you're leaving so much ROI on the table. It's unreal. So I would tell you with adamant that you need to get yourself a standing desk and a walking pad and do that in the morning early. Get your body moving, because you'll find that as you start stepping and moving, it changes the chemistry in your brain and body. It literally will change your brain chemistry. It starts to push oxygen through your system. You get more oxygen into your brain. You start thinking more clearly. You get better blood flow going on. It's good for all kinds of stuff. They've done brain scans on these things, by the way. And it will help start to stabilize and produce all those neurochemicals that help you feel good. So I will walk from 4:30 through to 5. And usually at this time, I'm just consuming more content. I'm thinking about my day. I'm sort of thinking about the processes that I have to do for the day. And then at 5, I'll go in and I'll drop my morning mindset messages into my my mastermind group. Now, if you're not in my courses, this is why I highly encourage you to even just give this a shot. Get into my 6-week Anomaly Project course or get into my Business Athlete Council. Because I've had so many people say to me, man, like, you're good at what you do. Like, you know, you have a lot of knowledge with diet and training and all these things, but I stayed with you because of the morning mindset content. I've had this from so many people. I don't miss. Since the inception of my business, I have not missed a single day of this. That's genuine. Even when my wife was in hospital giving birth to our son, even when she was in hospital with subchorionic hemorrhages previously, and we're in and out of hospital, every morning I would do the morning mindset messages. And the reason was that because it gave my life and me meaning to my process. Like I was saying before, discipline looks like punishment if the mission is not clear. And because I know that when I share these lessons, it helps me too. Like, it helps me verbalize and articulate and reinforce the principles into myself. So I get added benefit from doing them. So I found that if I wasn't to do them, I wouldn't feel as good. And so that sense of mission is why I'm able to execute the discipline. So I do that every morning. And it's like a burst of about 3 to 5 short, anywhere from 1 to 3 minute audio messages that are around different topics, a concept, a teaching, a piece of wisdom, a story, all of the above. And the students will jump in the morning as they're starting their day, and they tune in and they listen to that, and they get their head in the right place. Because you've got to remember, it's one thing to have the information, but if your mindset is not good, you will not execute the information properly. You will not. That's why, you can go to ChatGPT and dump your blood work into ChatGPT and get like the perfect plan and breakdown. If that's all a good transformation took, why do most people not have good results? Why? Most people don't have good results because information is only one part of the problem. It's only one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is your mindset. It's your environment. It's the type of people that you are around. It's your habits. It's your routines. It's what it means to be human. You can't just run this through an AI prompt and an algorithm. This is the human component that people are missing. And so if you've been trying to bootstrap stuff and you're like following workouts and diet plans and you're ChatGPT and the heck out of stuff and you're still not getting momentum, reach out and get into my tribe, because that's the missing piece for most people. And once you put that piece into place, the rest often falls into place. So once those morning mindset messages are done, I then start to think about a story, a topic, a teaching. I treat my social media like a digital journal. So especially with my Facebook, I've never really posted for the algorithm. A lot of people who love social media, they'll essentially be like performing circus monkeys, and they will engineer their content to appease the algorithm. And hey, if you want to do that and get massive reach and build a really big following on social media, more power to you. I think that's great. I don't think it's a bad thing. But I've never really been that way. I don't like the idea of forcing my creativity into this sort of performing circus chimp energy where I'm just doing things to appease the algorithm. So often my content doesn't actually do very well in the algorithms because I talk about a lot of mental health stuff. I talk a lot about different diagnosis. Like I'll use words like cancer and autoimmune and testosterone and all these things. And I know that it's absolutely crushing my reach because the algorithms doesn't like people sharing this type of information. So first I want to say, when you share my stuff, that's why I genuinely appreciate it, because your word of mouth is how I get my message out there and how we help more people. Now, sure, I do try to be reasonably mindful with the way that I structure my content. You know, I do try to use inspiring pictures and videos. Like there is a little bit of method to the madness, but I will always lean into my innate creativity and what feels true to me. And I would encourage you to do that as much as you feel comfortable with. But I say this because I will write some content. I will usually get a video or a picture or something, and I'll storytell. I think to myself, Fraser Bailey, who is that man? Like, what are the pillars that make me who I am? What are the core tenets? So if I was to take 6 to 10 pillars that make me who I am, what are they? So it's like psychology, RV travels, traveling back and forth to New Zealand, being a father, being a husband, nutrition, blood work, mental health stuff, personal development, working out, homesteads and land, the Great Smoky Mountains. So those are a lot of the things that kind of make me who I am. What is that list for you? Now take that list and pick different topics each day and storytell around them and rotate through them. Especially if you use social media for your business, don't just pound people with constant business-related content. If you just slamming people in the face with constant pictures and business-related content, they'll just turn off. I weave in so much storytelling and fatherhood and lessons in my content, and then I'll talk about coaching because I want you to recognize that I understand your path, that I'm a real human and I've got these real results and I'm not just about making a buck. And I hope that you feel that. Even this podcast is just a total labor of love. I don't have any sponsors for this podcast. I really don't promote it that much. And anyone who shares it is greatly appreciated. So once I've done that piece of content, it's usually around 6 a.m. And that's when I switch into dad mode. So at that point, I've got a bunch of learning done. I've got my head in the right place. I've walked a bunch of steps. I've dropped morning mindset messages into the coaching group. I've got my social media content up, and it's only 6 a.m. So you're already stacking a bunch of bits of evidence that you are who you say you are before the day's even begun. I go inside, I go into the main house, and that's when I switch into dad mode. So basically at that point, I'll empty the dish. Like Lauren, Xander, and Zia wake up around probably like 6:30 consistently. And so I'll go in at 6. I make them breakfast, so I get their breakfast ready. And I will empty the dishwasher. I will empty the cat litter, and I'll clean up the little cat litter box and all that stuff. I'll take the dogs outside and let them potty and do all their things. And I will basically start, and then I even get my drinks and my process ready too. So I get my supplement case ready. I prep out my drink for the day. I get everything ready. While I'm getting everything ready, I'll have an AirPod in and I'll be listening to some type of personal development content, something positive, something that's like business and mindset related to really start to kind of gear up my brain. So while I'm doing the cat litter, while I'm making the breakfast, I'm like absorbing that high performance idea, that content, that fuel. That kind of gears me into the place where I do feel more entrepreneurial. I don't always want to consume that. Like I don't consume a lot of that first thing in the morning. I find I have to be in a certain mood, in a certain state. So I'll start doing that as I'm going through dad mode. I get the house ready, I open up the curtains, I get everything set up. So when they wake up, they can run into their process. They can run into their morning routine. Lauren homeschools, like that's her main role, that's what she does, and I really try and support her with that. I'll then go into the bathroom, and every day I will take 30 minutes in the bathroom just to get myself ready. Like I jump in the shower quickly to like reset the body. I'll do my hair, I'll groom myself, I'll wash my face. And I tell people, there is a real value to just taking a little bit of time to work on your presentation. I remember when I used to struggle a lot with my mental health, I was quite sloppy. So I was kind of unshaven. I didn't do my hair much. My hair was kind of longer and just kind of like disheveled. And I just didn't take a lot of care or standard with my personal hygiene. And that's like a basic thing that you need to work on first. If you're not brushing your teeth every morning and you're not washing your face and you're not like getting your hair shaped up and styled and you're not taking a little bit of time to like care about your presentation, you're already setting a low standard for yourself. You'll look like a slob, and when you look like a slob, you'll feel like a slob. When you feel like a slob, you operate like a slob. And I see that time and time again. And so I don't tell people to like spend a bunch of time in the bathroom for like vanity metrics because you're so vain that all you think about is how you look. Absolutely not. But I also recognize that, if when you look good and you look put together, you're more likely to shoot good video content. You're more likely to feel confident when you talk to people. And as a leader, as a consultant, I'm on social media. I'm talking to people all the time. Like I'll walk through the grocery store and I'll have people come and talk to me and ask me questions about health because they just look at me. And obviously I feel confident when I'm like put together. And there's just something about that little bit of self-care, like just having a nice warm shower, refreshing your body, that just makes you feel good. And so I'll take time in the morning. But while I'm doing that, I'll even bring my laptop into the bathroom and I'll put it on top of the bathroom countertop and I'll play another YouTube video. Now I'm watching another piece of content, another lesson, another thing to learn. So I'm constantly just saturating my brain with like the good stuff. Because I find for me, if I don't fill my brain with the good stuff, it's going to start filling it with negative stuff. That's just the innate way that I'm wired. I come from a family with a ton of mental health issues, a ton of mental health diagnosis, and a ton of addiction. And if I don't constantly flood my mind with good things, it will start to inadvertently flood with bad things. And that's just what I've learned about myself. And so I do that to constantly keep that water flow nice and clear so the pond of my mind doesn't get stagnant, full of mosquitoes and blowfly larvae, right? So you want to keep that water flow nice, clean, and clear like a nice mountain stream. So once I'm ready for the day, I will, a couple of times a week, run a few errands in the morning where I'll jump in the truck, I'll go drop off the garbage, I'll run through the grocery store, I'll get all our macro bowl stuff. There's a few things that I'll do, and actually I enjoy this time. Like I enjoy taking that little trip. I'll drive down the main strip of Pigeon Forge, I look at the mountains, it helps me get out of the house. And during this time, again, I'll listen to more personal development stuff. I'll often brainstorm podcast content then. And sometimes, because the traffic can be kind of bad here in the Smoky Mountains, I'll send voice messages to students. Or I'll drop voice messages to different people where I'm repurposing that time. So I'm using it. And there'll be times where I even am formulating a podcast show notes in ChatGPT. So I'll be talking into ChatGPT. I'll be formulating my podcast show notes. So when I get home, I've got it clear in my head and I can run straight into my podcast. And I've already got the show notes established. So I'm using that time to sort of collect my thoughts, position myself, get contact touch points done, that type of thing. And I probably do that 2 or 3 times a week by choice. I recognize I could be doing other stuff with my time, but I like that little process of getting out of the house. It acts like a little bit of like something to do beyond just being in the house all day. Now, the other days where I'm not doing that, I'll go out after I get ready and I'll walk outside in the morning when the sun's out. And because we have this little 1/4-mile subdivision, and I'll literally just walk this loop. And part of my process is I'll shoot a couple of talking head videos for Instagram and Facebook. So part of that is I think about the morning mindset topic that I just taught that morning in my audio messages, and I'll reteach it, or I'll teach a part of it, obviously, in the video. And one, it just keeps me accountable. And two, I find that by reinforcing the message verbally, it kind of re-anchors it back into myself. I found the best way to learn stuff is to teach it. And so I teach these principles every day, not only to help my students, but to help myself. So I'll shoot those couple of talking head videos. I'll get in on my standing desk and walking pad in my superhuman gym. And then at that point, that's when I start checking the emails. I'll check the messages. I'll start working through a few contact points with people. I'll check my social media. I'll kind of engage and create a little bit of algorithm engagement in social media. And at that point, there's a couple of different paths that I'll usually take. One is sometimes I'll record a podcast episode or I'll do a podcast interview. Other times I'll get my workout done and I'll shoot some videos around my workout. Other times, if I have some consulting or something to do, I'll position it and do that. Often through my day, this is how my day normally goes. So I will either be walking on my walking pad and my standing desk, or I'll be on my air bike, or I'll be outside walking in the sun. One of those three things is happening. And now people would say, that's crazy, dude. Like, you mean that you literally walk all day? Yeah, I do. And I will tell you now with absolute certainty that it enhances my energy levels more than anything else. If you ever get dips and troughs with your energy, you want to try walking all day, I promise you, like, you will not get dips and troughs with your energy anymore. The hardest part is people just wanting to do it. When I offer that solution, there are people that they just won't do it. And it's like, fine, enjoy your daily naps. Enjoy just kind of struggling with your energy then. Because at a certain point, there's only so many supplements and biohacking that you can do without like generating movement as the means to generate the energy. And think about it like this. Your body is like a human power plant. It's actually like a combination of a solar panel and a windmill. And these two auxiliary systems work alongside calories for energy. So your diet, the food that you eat, is an energy source. Most people don't realize that it's only one part of a multi-system energy source. You don't hear people talk about this very much. This is stuff that I've kind of learned myself. I've realized that movement generates energy. Think about it like a windmill. Those windmills, if the turbines are spinning, it's creating energy. Your body is literally the same. When that turbine is spinning, aka your legs are moving, you generate energy. When you get sunlight, like a solar panel, you generate energy. When you walk outside in the light, you generate compounded energy. I found when I walk outside in the light and I have some type of connection, that's why I shoot my talking head videos. So I'll either do quick voice messages, talking head videos. I'll do a quick live stream in my coaching groups. I did a quick live stream on my personal page today. That connection component generates even more energy. I think human connection, is an energy source. And so by walking, sunlight, movement, and energy source through human connection, it's like a trifecta of auxiliary power systems. And for me, this has been a massive lever in my life to pull. So literally, whether I'm doing a podcast, like I'm literally walking right now, whether I do a podcast or I'm doing a Zoom call, like a mastermind call, or I'm doing some content on social media, or I'm teaching, whatever I'm doing, I'll either be on my walking pad walking on my computer, or I'll be on my air bike, or I'll be walking outside in the sunlight. And I'm not power walking. I'm not telling you have to power walk and sweat your butt off all day. Even if you do a slow plod. Right now, I've been walking for 55 minutes, and I've been walking at 1 mile an hour, 1.25 miles an hour. That's it. And it's so effective for fat loss. That's the first thing, is if you're ever looking for potent fat loss, this is it. If you're looking for things to help improve insulin sensitivity, this is it. If you're looking for things to help improve digestion, this is it. Energy levels and focus, this is it. And so I will chunk my day down into quadrants. And one part of my day is like my workout. Another part of my day is like coaching and mentoring and consulting. I also take Xander for about 30 minutes each day, and I'll usually take him for a walk in his stroller to give Lauren a break so she can either work out or have some of her own time. Because obviously being homeschooling, being at home all the time and not having a lot of family support nearby, it can be very intense. Put it this way, you never really get a break. And that's partly why I get up so early in the morning, because it's really the only time that I get to myself. And for her, I try to give her a little bit of that time every day. So I have got to make sure that I'm performing at a high enough level with the business, with the coaching, with everything else, so I can even make that happen. Because think about it, I'm making them food, I'm looking after him a little bit every day, and I'm still working out, and I'm still coaching, and I'm still operating my business, all of it. Now, I'm not telling you that to brag, because I do think one of my challenges is I'm not that good at building systems and having a team. I prefer just to be by myself, to be honest, or just having like one or two assistants. I like that simplicity. I don't like the idea of this big, complicated system with multiple teams and people. It's never really been my thing, and I'm okay with that. But what I will say is these processes will still work for someone that does have big teams and systems, because I've had people that have big roofing companies that will now take their team meetings and they'll go for a walk with their team. Rather than sitting around a desk and everyone's sitting there half asleep, they'll go take a walk. And it does help with creativity. It does help with your energy. Like, it definitely is a good play. So I say all this because I use movement and I use the walking, sunlight, and connection as a way to prime the pump. And what I do every hour, so let's say, for example, I'm on my standing desk and my walking pad and I'm doing something like a podcast. At the end of every hour for about 5 minutes, I'll go outside, obviously if it's not raining, and I'll walk for 5 minutes in the light and I'll send 1 or 2 positive messages to people. And I call it priming the pump. And I find that one action done repeatedly through the day keeps my energy so much more stable than anything else. And I'm not having a lunch meal. I have my little protein bar in the morning, and really all I do is I have my post-workout protein shake and concoction, and I have a big dinner meal, and that's it. So I'm not really eating through the day. So I'm using these auxiliary power supplies to fuel myself. Now, what I would tell you is that you don't need to be eating all the time. And I would position your food in a way that kind of complements your workflow. I even position my workout at a point in my day where I call it like an energetic slingshot. Typically what I have started to do more so is I will train at about 1 p.m. Because I find that when I train at about 1, it creates like an energetic charge that then really propels me through the rest of my day till 5 p.m. And so I use that, I harness that like a slingshot. Because if you train super early in the morning, that's great. You might get a bit of energy out of that. But then what's going to give you that slingshot later in the day? Now, obviously, I realize some people, if you're employed or you're working through the day, you don't have that option. I get that. But part of it is you need to look at your day and map out when you train, when you walk, how you position your action items and your tasks in a way that complements like what you're trying to achieve. So whether you are cleaning houses or you have a plumbing business or whatever, I'd be listening to personal development stuff while I'm driving to different locations. I would be treating like any movement through the day as like step count and exercise. I would be sending positive messages to people anytime that there's no one around. I'd be constantly finding ways to stack these good principles into my life as much as possible. And what I find is that I go through my day, like I said, where I'm walking in some way, shape, or form. And what I also do is I leverage AI a lot. So I have ChatGPT, I have Claude, and on my phone, I have an email chat, I have a social media chat, I have a couple of different threads, chats enabled in my app. Where let's say, for example, someone messages me asking about coaching. I have a chat that's engineered to just clean up what I say. So if I'm doing voice to text, when people do voice to text, it usually comes through like clunky, or it doesn't sound like they wrote it, or it will change what they say. What I've done with this voice to text is it doesn't change what I say. It just removes any filler words, and it just structures the sentences in a way that I would write. And so I will be walking, and I'll often be pushing Xander in the stroller, and I'll be verbalizing a comment response on social media, or I'll be responding to a DM, and I'll be talking into my phone, into my chat. I'll literally just copy the edited version once it spits it out for me. I'll paste that, and I send it. So while I'm walking with my son, giving Lauren a break, I'm commenting and adding value to people on social media. I'm closing sales with people in DMs, and I'm even sending tactics and coaching bits of advice in messages through this modality. Now, with my one-on-one students, I will do direct voiced messaging in Voxer and Telegram. And so I'll often take a walk, and I'll just run through some of my one-on-one students, and I'll just message back and forth with them. I've structured my day where I don't do any calls, really. I don't do any real-time one-on-one calls, really, anymore. I've never enjoyed them, and I never liked the idea of looking at my calendar and it just having tons and tons of Zoom calls back to back to back to back. That, to me, is like prison. Like, I do not like the idea of that at all. And so when someone says to me, oh, can we jump on a call? Often, like, I will just like say no. Like, let's have a conversation in email. Let's like send me what questions have you got? Because I'll be honest, I think a lot of people, they're so used to talking on the phone as a formality. They think it's the polite thing to do. It's such, in my opinion, like an extra step that's often a waste of time. Like, I've had many people say, hey, can we jump on a call? And I'm like, well, what do you need to ask me? And they'll send me a question, and I literally answered it in 1 minute right there. And I'm like, that just saved a 30-minute call. Just then. And so you have to recognize that by sending quick voice to text, short voice messages, and just short questions, you can expedite so much stuff where you don't have to get on calls with people all the time. And I just don't enjoy them. It drains me, and I feel trapped. So part of my brain, the way my brain works, that ADHD mind, was that I will get myself into a good energetic state, and then I'll send the voice messages. Then I'll reach out and give the coaching. So I don't always know exactly when that's going to be. And if I'm forced to get on a structured call, sometimes I might not be in a place where I'm feeling very inspired. Or I might just be trying to deal with, like, if Xander's having a meltdown and Laura needs help, or the puppy's pooping all over the floor, like, I have to go in and like deal with that stuff. And so I've structured the way that I operate and the way that I coach to accommodate my personality type. And the way I think about it is, look, if you really value my expertise and you really want a good result, follow my lead. Don't try to force me into your model, because your model's created your fitness and health result. That's what I tell people. And I say it to a lot of the high performers. I'm like, look, I recognize that you might want to be on calls all day, but that's why you are overweight and you have your result you have, because you sit on your phone at your desk all day. We need to reposition the way you do everything. You need to actually have an identity shift around you. And it's hard for some people because they've built a degree of success financially in their life doing certain things, and now they have to reconfigure all of it. Otherwise, they'll end up having a heart attack or a stroke. And it's that simple, and that's the honest truth. So using AI to really repurpose time to pump out content, touch points, responses is massive. It's massive. Now, I'm very strict about my evening routine. Like, I've had people say, hey, can you do a mastermind call at 8 p.m. at night? And I'm like, no, I can't. I'm sorry. At this point in my life, my evening routine with my family is the precedent. I do not want to be working at 8 o'clock at night. It's just not going to happen. You've got to have boundaries in your life. Otherwise, you will just bend at the mercy of everyone else, and you'll be this reactive, stressed out person who's losing their freaking hair and losing their mind because you're just saying yes to everything. Human doormat. And so I will turn things down because it falls outside I won't answer the phone when I'm making dinner, for example. I'm having dinner with my family. I'm absolutely not answering calls. If the call's not scheduled, it's not being answered. And I know some people will struggle with that. Oh, you'll lose business. So be it. If I get to live in accordance with my values and my alignment and live the way that truly makes me happy, that's the price I'm willing to pay. And it might look different for you, and that's okay. To me, there's no right or wrong to this. It's just, what do you value? And I value my family and that mental space and mental health more than making a quick sale. And I find that it acts like a filter. The best people will come back and they hang around and they get it and they adapt. And those are my people. Find your people like that. Don't see this as a bad thing. Now, as we wind down the day, I'll often create a bit of a separation between finishing work and going in to be with my family. So I jump on the air bike for about 20 minutes. So I finish like walking on my walking pad, getting work done, doing some coaching, and I'll jump on the air bike for about 20 minutes, and I'll usually pop off a few more voice messages, a few more voice to text, just to finish everything off. Then on the last 10 minutes, I'll sort of start to transition over to like another YouTube video that's more like, might be like homesteading or, like prepping or survival. It's just something that I find interesting, but it's not necessarily business related. And I'll just ride for a bit, or I'll throw my weighted vest on and I'll just kind of get my breathing up a little bit, and I'll just finish the day with that win. No matter how the day's gone, good or bad, kicked in the teeth or not, I'll finish the day with that win. That idea of control the controllables. Like finish on your own terms. And then I'll go in and then I'll help make dinner. I often make dinner for us too. And so I'm good at it. I move quick. I get these things done. I have systems and processes. And I'll go inside, and while I'm making dinner, I'll use the air fryer a lot. While I'm making dinner, I will prep out my supplements for the morning. I'll prep out my coffee pot for the morning. I'll prep out my drink for the morning. So while I'm making dinner, I'm doing these other things to get my morning routine ready. I'll throw my laundry in the washing machine, or my gym clothes and stuff, and I will wash everything so everything's fresh and clean. And by the way, when it comes to working out, every day I do something. And it's usually about 45 minutes to 1 hour. And in between my sets, I will shoot little videos. I'll send little messages. I'm always kind of peppering things in. I just operate that way. Like, I find that it keeps me locked in and it keeps me consistent. And I stay on top of everything every day. Now, as I'm prepping out my stuff for the morning routine, if I was traveling anywhere the next day, I would be making a double portion of my dinner meal, and one of those portions would be my lunch for the next day. So I'd be making twice as much. One goes into Tupperware, that's my lunch meal for the next day, and then I'm having dinner meal. I do my macro bowl process. My macro bowls usually take about 8 to 10 minutes to make, so they're very streamlined and quick. It's not a bunch of stuff. It's not a tedious process. And what we do is we have a wind down period at nighttime. So at 7, we have dinner at about 5:30, and at 7 o'clock, our evening alarm will go off on Lauren's phone, and Zia knows that this is like the wind down period. And so what we do is we turn the thermostat in the house down to like sleep mode. We have a bunch of Himalayan salt lamps and candlelit diffusers on, and we turn off all the harsh interior lighting. We put on some lavender essential oils. I will play some relaxing spa music on Spotify or on YouTube. And we actually have YouTube Premium up on our TV. The brightness is turned down, and it's just like this beautiful sort of piece of digital wall art with a relaxing spa music in the background. And so now we're tapping into all these different sensory systems. We're tapping into sense of smell with essential oils that help calm the nervous system. We're tapping into visual cortex with the red lights, the Hygge red lamp, the Himalayan salt lamps, the candlelit diffusers instead of bright, harsh interior white light. We are tapping into auditory system, sense of hearing with the relaxing spa music and things like that. And we're tapping into the tactile, like the sense of touch with the skin temperature, with the interior temperature of the house. Now, as we do all that, we run through, we clean up the table, I wipe down all the kitchen benches. I even run the vacuum cleaner quickly through the skirtings of the house because we have a couple of animals to clean up all the dander and the dust, and that kind of helps with allergies a lot of the time, a lot of the seasonal stuff that people experience. You could obviously use a Roomba if you want, but I just quickly run through the Dyson. It takes a couple of minutes, and Lauren and Zia will take the dogs outside. I'll get the dishwasher stacked and ready to go. And then we just kind of wind everything down. And we go into the room and we start winding down. We get ready for bed, and we'll often read some books. Lauren and I have this little process. It sounds kind of silly, but I really find it's helped us, where we'll sit on the bed together, and for 1 minute, we'll just like sit in front of each other face to face, and we'll just look at each other. That's it. There's no talking. We'll just hold hands and we'll just look at each other. And you just lock eyes and you just look for 1 minute. And what I've found it does is it really helps humanize the other person. Often if you've been married for a long time, you can forget there's a person in there. There's a person that's doing their best. And I find that just by looking at her, it really helps me get back to that place of just like love and gratitude. And then for the next minute, we'll just hug. And so we just hug and hold each other for a minute or two, just like an extended embrace. And I've found that that's been a really important part of our evening routine. And Zia sees it. Zia gets to see us do that. So she sees what love looks like. She sees what connection looks like. Now, obviously, if you're single or you're not in that environment, that's okay. You don't have to do this. Like, this is just for certain people. And maybe at a certain point you will have that in your life, and that's okay too. But how can you connect with the people? How can you connect with people you love and even connect with yourself? Have time where you sit with your own feelings and your own emotions, and you look through your own favorites album on your phone, like a digital vision board, and you sort of think about the life that you want to create. And by getting to bed earlier, you avoid all that temptation of like wanting to snack, wanting to eat, feeling stressed, feeling anxious, wanting to self-soothe with substances. And that will help you so much. So I say all this because that's basically a rinse and repeat process I do every day. And what I do each week is we do go out to our land in the weekend, and we'll get out onto the land to reconnect to the vision, and we'll usually take Zia and Xander to the playground. And I find that by getting everyone out of the house and having that reconnection to like the bigger dream, it really does help stoke that fire and keep it alive. One other thing that we'll often do if the weather permits is we'll take a family walk each day. And it's usually at some point in the afternoon, even if it's for 15 minutes. Get out as a family and walk as a family. I promise you the walking as a family has been a really useful part of the equation. And often at the end of the day, before or after dinner, it's just this beautiful experience. And so I say all this because it's obviously a stark contrast of waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning and rolling up a cigarette, right? It's a stark contrast. But what I've found is that by working on these principles and locking in these processes every day and recognizing that food is like software and your body and mind are the hardware, and that moving and light and connection are auxiliary power supplies, and getting to bed earlier to avoid all the late night temptations, using healthy food upgrades to swap out junk food for healthier options, by being in a tribe of people who are ambitious and positive, because information is only one part of the equation. Like I said, if all it took was some ChatGPT prompts, everyone would be in great shape. And the reason why they're not is because it's not the full picture. You're missing elements. So reach out and get into the tribe. And beyond that, recognize that you are a work in progress and you never really cross the finish line. And you're going to have periods where you have momentum and you're going to have periods where you don't. And your ability to show up even on those days and get the work done is massive. Like I often think to myself, what's the next best step? And I'll chunk my day down. If I'm feeling kind of beat up, if I'm feeling kind of low, if I'm feeling tired, I'll go take that walk to prime the pump. I'll send a couple of positive messages to people. And I find that one action alone kind of reinvigorates you a little bit. You've got to start somewhere. And I tell you that I still have so many aspirations in my life that I want to achieve. But operating this way and being structured and intentional, like if you're just eating whenever the heck you want and your evening routine's like all haphazard and you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, like you're going to be a hot mess. And your body will represent that. You won't be in great shape. You'll probably have a lot of stress-related health issues, gut issues, autoimmune issues. Given enough time with enough stress, that's what causes things like cancer. And so you've got to recognize that that is something that you can change. But it starts as a daily practice, every single day. So think about it every day. And by the way, at the end of the night, also, right before dinner, I'll jump in the shower again. I'll wash off, I'll reset the system. Quick 5 minute, not even a 5 minute, 3 minute shower. There's real power to just like refreshing and resetting the body. And then I find I sleep better as well. So there you have it, guys. Morning routines, evening routines, daily workflow. Now, it's going to look different for you. But how can you take the elements of this and apply it and make it work for you? That would be my question to you. Don't dismiss something just because you're not working at home doing what I do. That's naive. What I would say and what I would propose to you is how can you use these methodologies and how can you apply it into your life to make it work? Fit it in, slot it in, and be accountable. Stop looking for the shortcuts. Stop thinking that the answer lies in another peptide, but stop avoiding doing the work. Like sometimes, yes, focusing on addition is huge, but sometimes you've got to drop the hammer and remove those old people and those old things from your life. And no one can do that but you. It has to come from you. There's no amount of outsourcing and no amount of money that you can do to make that happen. It must come from you. So there you have it today. Go out there, create that life that you want, and it starts one action, one habit at a time.